People talk about the commission that realtors make, but nobody talks about the startup costs. Nobody talks about the length of time that it takes for a deal to close before you get your commission. Your marketing costs, everything to get you going. And yes, you can use inexpensive things to do that, but in my experience, you have to pay for good quality things in order for those things to bring you a good return on investment.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Hodge here, broker of record and co-owner of the Realty Firm, and we are super excited for another episode of the No Secret Agents podcast, where we want to bring you insights and some abundance and contribution from some of our members who are doing just great things inside of their marketplace and beyond. Hopefully it inspires you, gives you some borrowed belief that you too can have success in any market. And today I'm blessed and fortunate to welcome Karen Sutherland, who joins us from our Oxford County office. And Karen has been with us for a short period of time, but we've gotten to know her very well, seeing her doing amazing things. And Karen, we welcome you today.
Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So can you take us through a little bit of your backstory, who you are, where you're from, and maybe how you got into real estate?
Well, I'm Karen Sutherland. Born and raised in Woodstock. I grew up on Grosvenor Street, for those that know Oxford County. I was involved in minor ball, sports through high school. I was a day camp leader for the city of Woodstock for a few summers. And for those that remember, I worked at the Blandford Square Mall. That was my first job in sales. I worked at a store called Jean Junction, a locally owned store. And how I got into real estate was I initially was a legal assistant in real estate. So when I was taking my courses, when I had to take my real estate course, that was it for me. I fell in love with real estate. I love process. I respect process. I believe in process. And real estate is very much that on the back end, maybe not so much in the deal situation, but definitely on the back end. So I worked for the second largest law firm in Canada at the time in downtown Toronto. I worked for a senior commercial real estate lawyer, and they hired me right out of school. So I went into a vast learning environment immediately. And I'm a sponge for knowledge. And the lawyer that I worked for was brilliant. I learned so much from him.
Awesome.
And then when I left that position, I went to Loblaw Properties. So I supported the VP of the real estate division. So I worked on all the real estate transactions of the properties that Loblaw's was buying for their stores. And that eventually led into a lease administrator administering the leases for the stores that they moved out of because they were too small and moved on. And then I had my second child, my daughter, and I wanted to be home a little bit more. So I took a position as an executive assistant for a global company working in purchasing.
Ooh.
So in all different areas, there's been these transferable skills that have all led me to where I am today and support what I do because of the knowledge that I've gained over time.
Well, even myself, I knew you had experience, but that's a wealth of experience.
Yeah.
When you look at, real estate, transferable, obviously you've got the experience and a lot of working knowledge from what, you did before, especially, having your roots planted so heavily in Woodstock and your community for all those years. Sales is a little bit different at times in the sense of, we are commission-based independent contractors or salespeople. How was the initial start from, moving from what I'm guessing is more of like a salary type of position or, that sort of thing into that commission sales environment where, especially in the last few years, it's been a little bit cutthroat, to say the least.
I jumped without a parachute.
Nice.
I was blessed because when I started in a team. And so I had the wealth of their knowledge to assist me when I was getting my feet beneath me. And that was experience and knowledge that I gained that has truly assisted me in my path. But going to a commission-based system is terrifying.
Sure.
And the thing of it is, that I found anyway is people talk about the commission that realtors make, but nobody talks about the startup costs.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talks about the length of time that it takes for a deal to close before you get your commission. Your marketing costs, your everything to get you going. And yes, you can use inexpensive things to do that, but in my experience, you have to pay for good quality things in order for those things to bring you a good return on investment. So that part I found very challenging. And I started 6 months before COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a whole other story for sure.
Yep. But I've learned a lot during that time because you had to develop different skills. You absolutely had to just pivot. I hate that word because it was so overused during COVID, but it really did make you sort of reach into your repertoire of skills and just on the fly you had to do different things. Communication is absolutely key in this business, I have found. So yeah, that's
I appreciate
how I
that.
found it to start.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it because a lot of people, they look at real estate and the glitz and the glamour and people think we're making all sorts of money. Well, I know people that haven't, gotten their first sale up until around the year point. I mean, it's why 2/3 of people in this business exit very quickly as well. Like it's no joke. And there is a significant cost. I was lucky because I had another role that I could subcontract where I was earning commission, from, but I was just pouring it into the real estate, testing and trying different things. So I was fortunate that way, where a lot of people were asking me, how'd you get busy so quickly? Well, a lot of it had to do with that. So I had a bit of an advantage that way where, a lot of people have to really grind, when they get in to earn some revenue so that they can try, whether it's online leads or flyers or things like that. Did it take a while for you to, secure your first transaction, or was it, the, quick start because you were, all in right away?
I was all in right away. I actually won the Rookie of the Year award with the brokerage that I was at previously.
Nice.
I had my first deal in the first, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks. I was blessed. It was a family member.
Sure.
But from there, it just continued. I think because of my roots in Woodstock, and quite frankly, because my dad was so involved in Oxford County in a multitude of different ways, he's introduced me to so many different people as well. So I know a lot of people, and I think people that know me know that I'm a genuine person.
Yes.
So I think trust is something that I take very seriously. Integrity is something that I take very seriously as well. And I think that translates into the people that I deal with. I was doing my numbers the other day. I have an 80% referral rate.
Oh, good.
For 3.5 years in the business, I think that's a pretty solid number.
Darn right it is.
And so, I started out with my first deal, and then it was my second. And I was fortunate enough to take a call from a sign on one of the listings that we had the very first summer of COVID. And I turned that into, I think it was 7 deals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a
I'm
big
a patient
part of
person.
Sure, but that's a big part of business that I think a lot of agents don't get is that, that list to exist, list to last. There's so much that can come from a listing, and now in the age of digital marketing and what we can do for content, and the calls and the fact that the market shifted a little bit in terms of, it's not on the shelf for 3 days and then gone, right? We are getting more calls. There are more opportunities from the listings. What would you say would be some good guidance for a new agent to get started, quickly that way? And to, obviously you've got a pretty good sphere of influence. You're working by referral. You've got a network, dad's introduced you to a lot of people. It's all great. So when you look at that for, the agent that might not have as much connectivity or even maybe their roots planted so well, what guidance would you give to a new agent to maybe have that quick start?
There's a couple of things. So one thing I learned working at Gene Junction was that you cannot tell the seriousness of the person's purchasing capabilities just from the outward exterior, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask the questions, and you have to ask the questions in a way that is comfortable and not rushing them, right? Like, you're asking the questions because you want to get to know them, because you want that information to be able to help them to the best of your capabilities. And so I would say that that's a big key thing, is to try and get to know the person, like take the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I would say is you've got to be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to be hungry, and you need to do the open houses. You need to make the calls back to the people that called you and didn't leave their number but left their email. You've got to work around their schedule. That's how I do it. Like, I work my schedule so that I can conduct my business, but I bend my schedule to accommodate my clients. The flyers, when you have a listing, you go and you do the flyers.
Sure.
I don't necessarily talk real estate with people when I'm speaking with them. I kind of let it organically happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the asking good questions. Don't ask closed-ended questions.
No.
Ask leading questions, and get that knowledge about somebody, and then keep an eye out for it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I go in my system every day. I've got auto emails set up that come just to me for properties that I think would benefit somebody. And I vet them first if they're just sort of on the fence or they're looking for something very specific. And I will go in and I'll vet it, and then I'll send it to them and say, hey, I just saw this. It checks off, 4 of your 6 requirements, and it starts a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And when you invest the time in those people, it may not end up in a transaction with them right away. Over time, it will, but they will remember the way that you treated them.
Mm-hmm.
They will remember how you were interested in helping them reach the real estate goals. And that translates into them speaking about you to somebody else.
Yes. I think agents right now are, especially through COVID, I found really getting off that track of, we're in a path of service, serving others, not just waiting for, the next sale. And I see it, online every day, all over North America, and all over the place for that matter. When you look at the different ways that somebody can really reach out and help, how do you differentiate when there's so much competition out there? And I mean, you guys knowing this about, we're obviously our main hubs in London, but Woodstock, there's been a massive influx over the last few years of people coming from out of market to, serve clients. We get it too, but I know that it's much more prominent in your area. How do you go even beyond to differentiate?
So I have a core belief system that the clients that I'm meant to work with are drawn to me.
Mm.
And if somebody wants to use an out-of-town agent because they have a belief system that that agent has some sort of skill set or client base or something that the agents in Woodstock don't have, then those clients were meant to work with that agent. Mm-hmm. It's sort of that buyer beware. I have to say I struggle with it a lot. The out-of-town agents coming in and listing properties in Woodstock when they don't live here, they don't know the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I myself refer business to agents out of town because I feel I do my clients a disservice by trying to do proper comparables on a neighborhood that I just don't know.
Yes.
So I believe that there are enough clients to go around for everybody. And as I said, I believe that the clients that I'm meant to work with are the ones that I'm drawn to and they're drawn to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll come to a successful conclusion that way. Because if you have a competitive mindset, like if you're competing against your colleagues, you're competing against yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be self-defeating. So I honestly believe that you can talk to several people and they know 10 real estate agents.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to have the mindset that just because you know somebody, or just because you have family, or just because you're friends with somebody, does not mean that they're going to use you as a real estate agent.
No.
And you cannot take that personally.
Well, there's so much of that, right? That and I do a lot of training on it, but a lot of times the people that we think are going to do business with us don't, for whatever reason. And then the ones that you wouldn't even had on your radar all of a sudden show up if you're continuing to serve, right? Continuing to provide that value. And I find that it's interesting how agents get so bent out of shape, but I get it. There's disappointment when we don't get a listing, or, a client that we thought was, a slam dunk to work with us doesn't, come to fruition. Sometimes you just don't know the backstory too, right? We don't know if, they're getting pressure from, their parents to use, their best friend, that's a family friend and whatnot. So there's lots of things. There's people that just don't want to do business on that personal level either, right? They don't want to invite people in, and that's okay. I agree with you. The right people show up. I feel like that inside of sales. I always have inside of, the avatar, if you're into, a training dynamic like I am, and also inside of the brokerage. We've had people that have exited, and sometimes you go, I wonder why. But I've learned over the last decade that the right people always show up. And when we have people leave and, they exit responsibly, it always makes room for other people. And I think that applies, to the sales dynamic for sure. The client that is really challenging or creating a lot of stress or drama or, anything that, comes up, I find that oftentimes if we, again, responsibly exit that person from our own sales business, it just makes room for the right avatar that we want to work with to show up as well.
Absolutely. I have found that when I let go, instead of trying, because you can't control things. I do what I do to the best of my ability. And there are things that happen that are just outside of my control.
Sure.
But when I start to, I'll use the word fixate, but when I start to fixate on why something isn't going a certain way or whatever, it stops me. It makes me stuck. And as soon as I clear that, things come. And I know some people don't understand that, or maybe not believe in it. And to each their own, but I, when you've got a clear head, things can come to you. You look at things differently when you have a clear head. You can look at things objectively when you have a clear head. And so I have found that that's incredibly valuable in my business.
For sure. I think that when we're so focused in on it, we get into that resistance space where negative energy creeps up in our experience. I think that when we're, locked into it, we're really in that scarcity space where we tend to draw in more of the same. And that's where a lot of agents are right now. They're feeling the pinch of this challenging market. They're feeling, the lack of business, but they're so focused on that and the market and, the conditions and interest rates and blah, 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 where others that are just looking at, opportunities and that process that you talked about when we first started chatting, they're having tremendous success.
I also find that in my experience thus far, when I work with clients who give me their trust, like 100% are all in with me and take my advice, trust my expertise, those deals just go so smoothly.
They do.
They really do. It's amazing, but it's true. And I think that goes to when somebody doesn't trust you because they can't let that go. Sometimes I think that they're blocking themselves from what potentially could come their way.
For sure. You talked about collaboration and, learning and training and whatnot. I always find it interesting how there's two types of agents. actually three. The third's impartial. They just, they just see what happens and let it happen. There's those that are very competitive. They play secret agent inside of their office. They don't engage. They're just there to do their thing, and that's okay. And then there's those that really engage and they collaborate with other agents. And I think that we've got a pretty good environment here at the Realty Firm. I found it interesting. I was in Texas last week. Coaching client of mine flew me out there, and Sandra, my partner. Totally different brand. And, the brand is certainly on the radar, one of the fastest growing brands in the world. And what I found was that, the comments from those that I feel are a little bit closed-minded with some limiting beliefs were, how would you go and, check out another brand? Well, it wasn't a brand-centric event. It was more about, building business and, collaboration and connectivity. And I found it one of the best events I've been to in years. And so when you look at that collaboration factor and connecting with fellow agents and, sharing what you do, how important is that to your business, and how should other agents really connect and build that collaboration among their peers?
I think it's incredibly important. Mm-hmm. I treat the agents that are on the other side of a deal the same way that I would hope to be treated. And in turn, I think that it's one of those things where you're sort of paying it forward, right? Mm-hmm. You may not get a listing, for example. You may be competing for a listing with somebody else and they may get it over you. But the way that you handle that shows up and reflects down the way.
Yes.
Because you may be putting an offer in with that agent. And when you say to that agent, I vetted my client, their financing is good. I've been working with them. I know that they're solid. We're going to get the financing. I've talked to their mortgage broker. Because you know that agent, because you've taken the opportunity to treat them with respect and treat them as a colleague instead of competition, they know that what you're telling them is true because they know who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had experiences with some more local out-of-town agents, and the experience has been fantastic, and it's turned into referral business. Mm-hmm. So this is a long game.
Yes.
This is not a short game. It's not about tomorrow. It's about laying the groundwork with your client base, with your colleagues, with business people, with local businesses. You have to lay the foundation in order to reap the rewards, not just next year, but the year after and the year after and the year after.
Keep planting seeds and that harvest will come. And the better we do it, the better the harvest, right? You talked about clarity and how important that is. What do you do to, find clarity to get yourself into that clear space?
Good question. One of the first things I do is tidy my desk and get all the clutter off my desk. I'm someone who, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So I have to keep things in front of me. But clearing my space definitely is like a physical clearing to mentally clear. When I'm really looking for focus, I do yoga nidra. I just stop what I'm doing if I've got the time, obviously. And I just go and I have a yoga nidra that I listen to, and it just clears my head. Sometimes I just step away. I step away. I go get groceries, or I go for a walk, or just step away.
Well, that's a big part of neuro-linguistic programming, right? There's a great body of work on that where people that do it and utilize that as a tool really well, it is stepping away. So I have colleagues, and I've done it in the past. I think it's fantastic work where, even on the hour you stop and, read a page of a book that's non-business related, or, have that point in the day where you are going to go for a walk and just detach from, all the craziness that is business. And that has been proven time and time again to actually increase productivity.
For sure. I find driving.
Sure.
Really, like when I drive, like ideas come to my head like crazy. Definitely. And I think it's because I'm so focused on driving that it allows the space for other things to come in.
For certain.
So,
For certain. 2023 is certainly more than halfway over. What's in store for you with the remainder of the year and into 2024? What's coming up next?
For business?
Business, life, whatever you want to share.
I'm taking a small trip to Whistler
Nice.
at the end of this month. I'm going to see my son. So I'm really excited about that.
Sure.
For business, I am starting a new program that the Realty Firm has brought to us, which I'm super grateful for. I'm commencing on a VIP program, which is
Cool.
a monthly opportunity for me to be able to connect with my clients in a way that's real estate, but it's a different sort of connection. And I struggle with that. Like, I've tried to do monthly mail outs and I've tried to do those types of things, but there's so many different things that we have to do that it tends to slip away because I overthink what I'm sending. So this way it gives me an opportunity to connect with my clients. And I absolutely adore my clients. I have the best clients. And I say that 100%. And they also have an opportunity to enter a draw to win like a grand prize, which is in a bigger pool. But I'm really excited to see where that takes me. I'm just going to keep working away, trying to build my business. And one of the big things that I need to do is really make my website super robust. So that is that's a goal for over the next year, because it's not an inexpensive endeavor.
No, it's not. Well, it sounds like some pretty amazing things for a pretty amazing person. It's obviously had a great trajectory inside of the business, and you just keep doing amazing things. So you've got connectivity with family, you've got connectivity with your clients, you've got, some building that you're doing. Where's the best place for people to find you if they want to chat about Oxford County real estate or building those referral relationships? Where's the best place for people to contact you?
Obviously, they can call or text. I find texting is just an easier means because while you're thinking about it, you can do it. You got to do it right away or it's out of your brain. Email, of course. If anybody wants to find out some more information about me, I have a website, which is sutherlandsellsoxford.ca.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me. Awesome. And I do try to get back to people quickly. If I don't, I usually have like an out of office reminder or something saying that I'm tied up for a certain period of time, but sure, calling and texting is always good.
Good stuff. Well, listen, I am certainly appreciative of you taking the time today. Certainly proud to see all the amazing things you continue to do inside and outside of real estate. And it's been a true honor. Everybody, Karen Sutherland from Oxford County. This has been another episode of the No Secret Agents podcast here at the Realty Firm. We're going to keep delivering on our promise to provide value and insights from some of our members inside and outside of real estate. And we invite you to attend any session that we put out. Karen, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate your time too. Bye.